What is going on, everybody? Thought we'd have sheets here, but it looks like it's just me. Excuse me, going live for this little three gamer. And basically, this is going to be one of those spots where you're going to have to try to get different somewhere. I think leaving money on the table is probably the wisest idea to do. You have, I think the Cubs and Cardinals stand out as the better stacks. I think that the Rays would be the next one with Cleveland right there. It's sort of like a pretty all fairly similar. But I think that for getting stacks, I think that you really want to try to figure out, just try to get the best players at each position and then, factor in ownership and leave some money on the table. As far as pitching goes, I'm probably going to just do the chalky thing and play Rasmussen and McKenzie because I don't really see the upside on the rest of these spots. The only one I could see like getting weird with would be Dakota Hudson, just because of how low the ownership should be. Stroman will have low ownership as well, but I think that Hudson actually has a reasonable enough matchup here where he could get there, and he's only going to be like 10% owned, which on this slate is like basically like 3% owned on another slate. In terms of catcher, my favorite is Higgins, but I think you can honestly play the lowest owned guy and just go. This is not a very strong position today. You hope for the best. Play the lowest owned player at the position. You're not going to need any money or any sort of savings. Right now, I have everybody sort of in the same range, and they're still updating because the lineups haven't been out yet. But my guess is that Hedges or Raleigh will be lower owned than either of the catchers in the St. Louis Chicago game. So that's one way to go to get a little bit off. At first base, using a guy like Josh Naylor, Ty France, Shohei, Owen Miller, those should be the lower owned of the first baseman. So really trying to focus on that. Goldschmidt obviously going to be the chalk, and it's fine if you want to play him. Just try to get different somewhere else. McKinstry's 2K. You could use him at second base. That would be the logical play. I think that if you wanted to try to get a little bit off the board and do the same kind of thing, I think you could play Yu Chang at the bottom of that lineup. He probably only has a couple of bats if they bring a righty in, but so it's a risk you have to take. But either Chang or Frazier should be on the lower side ownership wise. So that's something you could do to get a little bit different. Third base, I like Jose Ramirez. I think he'll be a little bit lower owned than Wisdom. I don't know, actually. He and Wisdom and McKinstry will probably all have some decent ownership. If you want to get, my favorite lower owned play would be Morel or Suarez. And again, not going to be that low owned, but just trying to find ways to get a little bit different on this little three gamer. At shortstop, JP Crawford is certainly someone you could use who's going to be lower owned, assuming that he's batting later in the order, and we may not even know yet. Well, we'll know by the time the Cubs game starts, but we won't know necessarily by the time the first game locks because we still don't have a lineup there. But yeah, I think JP Crawford would be your best bet as a low-owned option. Most logical options to me are Ahmed Rosario and then the Cardinals, both Cardinals. You could also throw in Horner in that mix, but they're all going to be pretty well owned. Reyes should be the popular play on the outfield. I really like Reyes, Nootbaar. I like the players and Hap, but I am just as happy to go to Mitch Haniger at slightly lower ownership, Oscar Gonzalez at slightly lower ownership. Suzuki should be the lower owned because he's right in the same price range. He's a little bit higher than Hap. I think Hap will be more popular. And again, you can use Morel out here, I think, as a lower owned option. Otani as a lower owned option. Taylor Ward as a lower owned option. Those are just guys who you can get a little bit off the board with. And then I don't know how much people are going to end up with a Dickerson because I think they'd rather play Nootbaar and you really don't need the savings. So that's sort of the general strategy, though, is to try. I do like the Cardinals Cubs game the best, but you want to try to play the things to get a little bit off the board. I'm siding a little bit more towards the Cubs than I am the Cardinals for what it's worth. But I also think that you can really, really try to just get weird and play things that, leave 2,000 on the table, leave 1,000 plus on the table. It's going to be really hard to get way off the board with individual plays. And the ones that I like the best are the ones I just mentioned. No, not really, Tony. To answer the question about low owned Cubs or Cards, Morel would probably be the lowest owned player, and I'm guessing. I'm trying to see who else might be in there as a slightly. Suzuki will be a little lower owned than the others, but still have ownership. Brendan Donovan, he'll probably have decent ownership too. Yeah, it's really hard to get off the board within that Cubs Cardinals game, and that's what everyone's going to try to do. So I'm going to encourage people to play a little bit more Indians and Mariners, just to try to do something. It's a weird little slate here, so it's one of those you just try to get weird with. So anyway, I don't know how much more there is to go over. Sheets should be here pretty soon. We're supposed to be recording for the night video. I am not going to be here this evening, so I'm hoping that Rhodey is going to be able to cover because Sheets is out as well. I have some doctor stuff that I have to take care of, and yeah, so it's I'm not going to be able to be here this evening, as unfortunately. So I'm trying to check with Rhodey right now to see if we can get him in on this. But yeah, fun little fun, well, almost a fun three gamer. I wish we had a fourth game to spread out the ownership a little bit. I do think that taking Seattle back. I like McKenzie a lot. Obviously, he's my top pitcher, but like at the same time, I think taking some shots on the Seattle lineup, you could get some lower owned pieces, particularly at the bottom of the lineup, like I mentioned with J.P. Crawford. Um, I think that's probably your best bet of getting different, but mostly I think you're using money as a way to get different. Or playing guys like Morel for the Cubs, at that high price and batting ninth. That's the kind of thing that I think you might need to do today to really uh, give yourself a chance to get off the board enough. And that's what I'm doing right now. Like I'm using Morel instead of Hap in some of my lineups, just to try to get a little bit different at least. Geez, yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world today to do. But trying to figure that one out. So, as I mentioned, I do think that if Josh Naylor is in the lineup today, I think that he's a reasonable way to go get different. Naylor, Morel. I do think Dickerson will be lower on the Newt bar for what that's worth. Yeah, these are really not fun slates. I do not love these kind of slates in general, and occasionally though, sometimes just getting that one weird spot to do something different is enough. So I do like the idea of kind of trying to do that. I'm just changing my lineup here and even going with some things I don't like as much to try to get a little bit off the board, but it's really hard to do, man. This is not a fun slate, so there's not a whole lot to talk about. If there's any questions or thoughts, please pop them on in there now because I don't know how much longer I'll be here. Sheets and I will record. Um, and that's pretty much it. Hey, yeah, what's up, HCO? Yeah, these are just the giggle slates, right? They're just the ones you sort of take some chances and you hope it works out. But yeah, and I appreciate it. Hope the doctor should be all right. I just it's an appointment I couldn't get out of that I've had for a while. So I appreciate the kind words. Any other thoughts or questions on this little tiny slate? As I mentioned, Morel a way to get different, Otani a way to get different. And not even that different. Using pitchers against hitters is more than fine on a 3-game slate. Leaving money on the table is a very legitimate option. Trying to get away from all Cardinals or Cubs is a way to get different. Uh, I think that without the Mariners and Blue Jay the Mariners and Guardians lineups out yet, maybe they're a little bit lower owned. But you're talking about fractional stuff, and I think that really just the money on the table combined with using guys like Morel and Otani over guys like Goldschmidt and Hap are just a good baseline for how you can get different on this slate. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. I think I'm going to get out of here. Just texted Sheets and see if he's ready to do the live stuff. Sorry, the recording stuff. But again, I'm sorry I will not be here tonight, and we will try to get Rhodey or someone to cover for me. I will be in Discord and able to chat that way throughout the rest of the day. So good luck to everybody on this slate. Hopefully we hit a miracle. I do think that we pointed out a couple of good things to maybe get a little bit different with. And yeah, let's try and make some money today. Good